welcome back. This is video 3 of studying Philippians 1, 12 through 20. Each week we post 3 videos on Bible study with the 3 parts: reading, understanding, and doing. We have already posted reading and understanding for Philippians 1, 12 through 20. So now it's time to take what we know and apply it to transform our lives. And we do that by looking at how each passage impacts our heads, our hearts, and our hands. And so we'll ask one question from each of those categories. If you haven't already seen the Bible study doing video, we go over the questions in that video. But the questions are kind of generic questions for Bible study, but I took them specifically from a place called Visual Theology, which is pretty cool. You should check it out. So let's look at how this passage of Philippians 1, 12 through 20 influences our heads, right? Our minds, the way we think, if you will. So the question we'll ask is, what does this passage teach me about myself in relation to God? What does this passage teach me about myself in relation to God? And I think a good way to answer that from this passage would be that my motives matter. My motives matter. Paul in this passage addresses 2 kinds of people who are both apparently doing something good. They are proclaiming the gospel, but some are doing it motivated by this desire to be better than Paul. Like they're glad that he has been removed and put in prison so that they can now excel in what they are doing. Now, the Bible shows us clearly that God is concerned about our motivations. And 2 words seem to come to mind when I think about the motivations behind anything that we do. And those words are faith and love. Faith and love. We should be motivated to live out our Christian lives out of genuine faith in God and love for others. In other words, the underlying reason for participating in the church, for reading the Bible, for praying, for fill in the blank with whatever it is not to impress people, right? But it's because of a genuine faith in God that those things are what God would have us do. In addition to faith in God, genuine love for others should motivate us. And Paul is going to talk about this a lot, not just in Philippians, but throughout the Bible. It's a major theme throughout the Bible, both these 2 words, faith and love are. But if we are truly in Christ, well then Christ is going to grow us in true love for other people. And that should come out, and that should be obvious, and it should actually come and flow from a motivation of true love for the person, not for some kind of selfish, hypocritical want to fulfill a desire. You know, I see like little quotes on Instagram or Facebook all the time about being able to cheer on other people's successes, even when it's not your own success. And it really shows a bad heart when we are disappointed when others succeed and actually glad when they fail. That is not a stance of love. So examine your heart in this. Examine your heart, which leads us to the next thing, our hearts. We need to look at how this passage is going to impact and affect our emotions. And there's a few ways we could approach this, but I want to ask this question. What does this passage tell me to hate? What does this passage tell me to hate? And ultimately, I think this passage tells me to hate fear. It tells me to hate fear. You know, Paul says that other believers are being emboldened to preach the gospel without fear. What is fear? Like, how does it feel in our lives? Well, fear is this concern with whatever negative thing that may happen to us because of the way that we may be living. Like, what is the negative result of the things that I do? That's what fear is. Fear is that feeling that stops you from doing what is right because of what friends may say. Fear is what makes us compliant with worldly standards because we desire to be liked by people. Fear absolutely shuts our mouth from speaking truth because we don't want things to get kind of awkward. You feel me? That's what fear is like. But we should hate fear. And we can hate fear by recognizing where it controls us and pushing against it to live out our Christ-like faith in a bold way. It will absolutely be radical. It will absolutely be different than everyone else. If we do that, we should hate fear. And last things are our hands. Our hands. And the question we're going to ask here is, how can I advance God's kingdom based on this passage? How can I advance God's kingdom based on this passage? And in all honesty, this passage is all about kingdom advancement. Kingdom advancement only happens, and this is key, with the proclamation of the gospel. People actually speaking about what Christ has done and the impact that it has on each individual and the community as a whole. So we can do all the nice things for people. We can feed them, we can clothe them, we can give to them, and we absolutely must do those things out of love for them. But if any of that, is done apart from the proclamation of the gospel, we've done nothing. We have done nothing. If we treat people well and we take care of their physical needs and we neglect their spiritual needs, we have failed them and we have disobeyed God. This passage, Philippians 1:12-20, is all about kingdom advancement because Paul's attitude is entirely tied to what is causing more people to hear about Jesus and more people to believe. I'm in prison? Great. The gospel advances. People are treating me poorly? Great. The gospel advances. My deliverance, whether by freedom from jail or by death? Great. The gospel advances. And Paul is going to continue that thought next week. But what about you? Could you say that is the focus of all you do? Is it kingdom advancement? Is it gospel proclamation with your life and in your words? I think a good question to ask ourselves as we look at our lives is, how can I use what I am doing to advance the gospel? Does my social media, does it reflect Jesus? Do the activities I do they reflect Jesus? Does the way in which I talk to people, does it reflect Jesus? Will I actually talk about Jesus? Or is he cut out completely from my life? I hope you'll continue studying Philippians because we've barely started. We're still on chapter 1. And next week we're going to look at verses 21-30 and we'll be able to wrap up that first chapter. Thanks for watching. Praying for you. Please be fervent in prayer. We'll see you later.